In early 1918, many Assyrians started to flee present-day Turkey. Mar Binyamin Shimun had arranged for some 3,500 Assyrians to reside in the district of Koy. Not long after settling in, Kurdish troops of the Ottoman army massacred the population almost entirely. One of the few that survived was Reverend John Ishu. After escaping, he stated the following: "You have undoubtedly heard of the Assyrian massacre in Koy, but I am certain you do not know the details. These Assyrians were assembled into one caravanserai and shot to death by guns and revolvers. Blood literally flowed in little streams, and the entire open space within the caravanserai became a pool of crimson liquid. The place was too small to hold all the living victims waiting for execution. They were brought into groups, and each new group was compelled to stand over the heap of the still bleeding bodies and shot to death. The fearful place became literally a human slaughterhouse, receiving its speechless victims in groups of 10 and 20 at a time for execution. At the same time, the Assyrians, who were residing in the suburb of the city, were brought together and driven into the spacious courtyard of a house. The Assyrian refugees were kept under guard for 8 days, without anything to eat. At last, they were removed from their place of confinement and were taken to a spot prepared for their brutal killing. These helpless Assyrians marched like lambs to their slaughter, and they opened not their mouth, save by sayings, 'Lord, into thy hands we commit our spirits.' The executioners began by cutting first the fingers, joint by joint, until the 2 hands were entirely amputated. Then they were stretched on the ground after the manner of animals that are slain in the fast. But these were their faces turned upwards, and their heads resting upon the stones or blocks of wood. Their throats were half cut so as to prolong their torture of dying, and while struggling in the agony of death, the victims were kicked and clubbed by heavy pulls the murderers carried. Many of them, while still laboring under the pain of death, were thrown into ditches and buried before their souls had expired. The young men and the able-bodied men were separated from among the very young and old. They were taken some distance from the city and used as targets and shooters. They all fell, a few not mortally wounded. One of the leaders went to the heaps of the fallen and shouted aloud, swearing by the names of Islam's prophets that those who had not received mortal wounds should rise and depart, as they would not be harmed anymore. A few, thus deceived, stood up, but only to fall this time killed by another volley from the guns of the murderers. Some of the younger and good-looking women, together with a few little girls of attractive appearance, pleaded to be killed. Against their will, they were forced into Islam's harams. Others were subjected to such fiendish insults that I cannot possibly describe. Death, however, came to their rescue and saved them from the vile passions of the demons. The death toll of Assyrians in this attack alone totaled 2,770 men, women, and children. Thank you.